This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, very good morning. Just tell me if you can see my screen and if you can hear me. Anyone, if you can see my screen, if you can hear me, if I'm loud and clear.
We can, yeah.
Yeah, very good morning. Thank you. So my name is Sandeep. I would be your instructor to the cloud. And I do have an experience of around 12 years in the DevOps. So I've been using the cloud from the advent of all the AWS and the way the services started from 2010. And I have got experience in like architecting the cloud. How do you use the various services for different purposes? And I migrated many of the on-premise setups to the cloud in my organizations also. So I do have a good experience on the AWS cloud, and I do have knowledge on Azure and Google Cloud, and I work up as a DevOps engineer. So where I use all the technologies related to the tools and process related to the DevOps that I inculcate in my current organization. So that is about me. So I see pretty people join here. So this would be a demo, like what I would be teaching in coming course about the AWS, how it would be different from like how do you learn here, like what kind of things that you take away after this course. So we would maybe this I'll first show you some things that why you need to know the cloud and what is the advantages of learning the cloud and why the different business and organizations are moving to the cloud this time. Later, I'll show you a small, like instead of telling you, showing you different kind of AWS services and all that, I'll show you a small demo. What if the cloud is not there, and what if the cloud is there? What kind of differences that it makes in understanding the cloud, and what is the advantage that you have in moving to the cloud and all that. So this would be my like brief things that we'll look into this particular demo class. After that, we'll go into the services, and I will learn more about the cloud and all that. Okay, so that's how I'll direct this particular demo class today. So feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. You can just ask me at any point, and if you like to know more about what we teach and how do you learn and the kind of strategy that we follow in learning, then you can just ask me the doubts regarding that in this demo class. So quickly, I'll jump into the things that we learn and what is a cloud computing. I think so. Pretty much of you at least know what is a cloud computing, and you could have dealt with basics of at least in your organization. They may be calling the cloud, and things are moving to the cloud and all that. But let's see why exactly we need a cloud. What kind of advantages that we give. So if you just take a basic how the internet works, this is how it works. Like I do have some slides. Let me just present them, and so that we can quickly get into the AWS again. So this is how a normal website will work. You have a client, you have a network, and you have a server. So to build a server, and you need to have certain things, like you need to have a kind of compute CPU, a memory that is RAM, which works as a brain. Like this is what a server composed of. If you take any application server or a web server, this is how the things will be there in a normal bare metal setup for a server. And after that, you need to store the data. For that, you need any kind of storage system and also a database to put everything in a structured way. So then we can think it of a server. So, and it also compromises of a network where it connects all these components and it makes something a server where you can start building anything. So in an IT terminology, you'll be having these things like a router, switch, which they are connected to different computers, and a network is built around this. So with two of these things, you have a servers where you can do anything. So that's the basic understanding of what is infrastructure that we need, and how do we build it. So let's suppose you have a business, and you want to build a website for your business and all that. So the simple thing that you do is, on the first line, you need to build some servers or anything. Let's suppose any company like Google or Netflix want to start their uh, uh, want to start their business. They first initially what they do is they build everything in a kind of home garage or somewhere. If you take Google, that is how it started building. So they have a separate space where they started purchasing what we call it as a servers, like all these things. So they take up a complete rack of missions, like they take some kind of server and they start adding an OS, like installing the OS, building their applications on it. So that is how a normal traditional way the things will start. Later, when they want to scale up, like when there is more and more business, they want to move this particular setup to somewhere so that they can sustain. They need to have more and more things. So they'll move into some kind of office or a data center. So they can maintain a separate room in the office. This is what older traditional approach used to be. So they have a space in the office where they used to put these servers there, and also they can purchase in a data center or they can build a data center where this particular room in the office will serve as a data center, which will have the servers there and which will serve the application. So if you look, this kind of model, a traditional approach, will have certain kind of issues. So firstly, you need to pay for the rent of the data center. After that, you need to pay for the power supply, backups and cooling and maintenance and all that. And let's suppose the business gets increased, like more and more users are coming. Like firstly, initially only 100 people were using your website, and now there is 1 million people using. So you need to scale up, like you need to add more hardware and all that, which would normally take a time if you want to add these things in a data center and maintain the things. And it is very limited. Like it again, the space constraints are there, power constraints are there, many things will be there, and you need to hire some kind of team who will continuously monitor your application, so that if something goes down, your application goes down and the business gets stopped. So you need to hire people who looks into all these things, and who do the maintenance of the infrastructure and all that. And now if there is some disaster, then everything goes off, you're out of the business, and there is a very large problems that you need to face. So this is how the problems will be in a normal traditional approach. So this could be, you can think of a company if it starts something like this, or you can think of a normal business also. If you start something like this, it would be a similar kind of problems you get for any kind of approach. So now let's see how you can make this, how can you export this into something where you can manage all these things. Like I want to move this fund from my side to somewhere where everything can be easily managed and I don't need to think of power supply, cooling, maintenance, and all these kind of things. Then comes the cloud. So if you see, the cloud is something which only gives you on-demand delivery of what you need. For example, if you need a compute, it only gives you on-delivery demand of compute. If you need a database, you can just go there and create a database and all that. And it is something like pay as you go pricing. Like it's a kind of power supply where if you have an appliance, you use it and the power bill is generated for that appliance. And if you stop using that, or if you if you switch off the switch, then there will be nothing billing generated to that. So it works on those lines. Okay. And you can also take whatever you want, like you can provision exactly what kind of size and computing and you need. For example, let's suppose in a normal traditional approach, if you bring a server, let's suppose there is a Christmas and like a festive season coming up, and you want to increase the sales in your e-commerce website or something. So you forecast the things, you bring a server, new kind of server, paying good amount of money, and you put it there and you connect it into your data center and people start using your website. Once that is over, then the server sits idle. Like in a normal times, you can't use those servers. So that kind of issues will be in the traditional setup. But once you come to the cloud, it's not like that. You only take what you need, a right size of computing resources and all that. If you don't need this, again you'll go back. You'll go back to the normal size and all that. So these kind of things are there in this in the cloud computing, and you can see like almost all the things will be created instantly. For example, if I need a database, I'll just go to some kind of web interface where I'll go to the database and click and tell I need a database. That's it. A database will be created for you. So this would be as simple as that if you look into this cloud computing. And you can simply access the server, storage, database, and all the application servers very simple way. So if you see, I'll just go to some kind of console. It's a web console, which I'll log in, and I'll start using whatever the service I want. If I want a database, I'll just go here and I'll create a database and I'll use it. So this would be as simple in accessing the things. So in a normal traditional approach, this would be a very difficult. How do you build it? How do you access it? And even for the building, it would be very difficult. But in this kind of cloud, any cloud, it's very easy. Whatever the database that you want to create, you can just click on instantly and you can start using it. Okay, that is what advantage a cloud gives us. So which is very important. And now, if you see, uh, all this AWS web server owns and maintains all the connected hardware for you. You need not think of how the hardware connects to database, whether like what kind of networking will be there and all these things. Everything will be provisioned from the AWS perspective, and we just start using what we need. It can be like any use case that you can start using it. It can be a normal website, a gaming computing, or a streaming company, or it could be anything. Like you can think of artificial intelligence or machine learning. For anything, you'll have the services in the cloud computing that you'll start using it. Okay, from here, you from the normal data centers and traditional setups that you have moved into the cloud, where you put all your infrastructure in a cloud. So this is what the cloud is and what is an advantage of cloud. And if you see, these are all, there are many services that already use the cloud services without you knowing that. For example, Gmail or Dropbox or Netflix is completely built on AWS service. The kind of streaming that they do, they have literally contributed many much DevOps patterns and cloud patterns also, because they use very very extensively the AWS cloud, and they have contributed much into the AWS services also. So that's how the Netflix relies on the AWS cloud. And there are many things which AWS offers you. And like if you see what are the deployment models in the cloud, there are like various deployments like private cloud, a public cloud, and hybrid cloud. So the private cloud is something where you have your data very sensitive and you don't want to give the data to the cloud. Let's suppose there is a use case from the client where the data is very sensitive and a banking application that you don't want to put on any of the AWS cloud or something which is a public cloud. Then you can have something called Rackspace where you can create this cloud. But all the clouds that we are talking about, and even we learn in this course, are a public cloud. So where you can put everything in the AWS and you start running it, or a Google Cloud or Azure. But there is a kind of setup where you can put the data in your data centers, that is in your normal private cloud, and you can have the public cloud which can access the services from there. So this kind of setup is a hybrid cloud model. Okay, this is what advantages of the cloud, where which gives you like on-demand services, and which has a broad network access. Like all the things will be accessed via network. And like once you create like multi-tenancy and resource pooling, like once you create a AWS cloud account, then you can give it to any of your customers. They can start creating the services, or you can use one cloud to multiple customers and all that. And you do have elasticity and scalability. Like you can just create the database, and if you don't need, you can terminate it. It's not that you go on paying even if you just create it. And all these things are measured in this way. Okay, so this is about the cloud, where we think of an operational expensive than the capital expensive. So I don't want to get into more things about the cloud. Let's jump into like how I told the advantages of the cloud, like why we need to move to the cloud and all that. Now let's to try to build an application without the cloud, and let's see what cloud gives us to like replace that. So firstly, I'll go with something called a social media application. Okay, this is a bit architecture that I'll tell you. I'll tell you without the cloud how exactly a Facebook look likes. After that, when I introduce AWS, how a Facebook kind of website looks like. So then you can understand the importance of any cloud and services that it provides you, instead of just showing you what are the compute services and database services or something like that. So let's see for a few minutes how we can do this. So let's suppose you are building an application which is a kind of a Facebook kind of application. Okay. So firstly, what you need a server, so which should be connected in a network. So what you do, you take a network that is a private network. You have a basic VM that you spin up. It's a server where you have a web server. So where you'll have a hard disk associated to that, and you have something called Apache or something running on this, which will serve your application. But if you want to have a kind of Facebook or something, you can't just rely on web server. You need to have something called application server where you run the business logics and all that, right? So now you introduce another thing, that is app server. So it could be a Tomcat, WebLogic, or WebSphere or anything which is running on another VM. So this is a simple setup that you have. You have a app server, you have a web server. People will have the IP, all the users who can access this particular web server, and they can start using their as a small social networking. But to establish as a social networking, you need more and more things, like you need a databases, you need to upload the images and videos and all that. So our architecture looks something like this. You have a network here, you have a web server, you have an app server, you introduce something called database. It's a very traditional relational database like MySQL or Oracle that use here. So now you use all the user informations, or it could be anything that relate to the application that you store on a database. Now the people will be accessing the website in this way. Okay, now you want to add something called a scalable, like if you want to like you firstly you want to scale, like let's suppose more and more people are accessing your website. You need this particular web server to be handling those many users. You can do this in a two ways. One is something called, we call it as a vertical scaling, where you increase the RAM and compute power of it. So if you're using 4 gigs of RAM, you increase to the 8 gigs. So further this application should be taken down, because unless and until you stop any server, you can't increase those resources. So instead of that approach, you can do something called horizontal scaling, where you add more number of VMs. So it looks like this. So you have two web servers, you have two application servers. Again, they are connected to a relational database, and it will serve your application. Okay, in this way, you can do a horizontal scaling and all these things. But here, for this entity, like something to work like this, you need to have some entity which will load the traffic to this one. For example, if first request comes, it will send to this one. If second request comes, this will send to this one. So then you need to introduce something called a load balancer. Now all the users will be accessing the load balancer, and the first request goes to a web server, and you'll have your website coming. And the second request goes to this one, and then you'll have your web server coming. So the architecture looks like something like this. So this could be this particular load balancer could be an Nginx or HA proxy, we call it as in a normal terms. Okay. Now everyone can't remember the IP, right? So now you need to put something which where you can directly remember, like fb.com, and where you can access it. So now you introduce the DNS. Now things are pretty happy here. Users are able to access fb.com. From the DNS, it hits the load balancer. And from the load balancer, the people are able to happily, even though the traffic gets increased, this kind of architecture can handle these things very easily. Now let's look into the database level. So I need something scaling here also, because I like more and more users are coming. I need to store the user information and all these kind of different things. So I need to have something called a scalable databases. So for this, I'll introduce something called NoSQL database. So NoSQL database is something which is a scalable database, and which is a not a kind of very traditional database. Okay, and we can also introduce something called DB cache for read-only replicates. So now we have taken care of complete DB part. So for this, firstly, you need a server with MySQL, you need a server with NoSQL, you need a server which will have something called Memcache, Redis, or something which does a kind of caching here. So this is what a normal three-tier architecture looks like for you. So where in a normal traditional, without the cloud, you need to take care of everything. You need to take care of load balancing. You need to take care of NoSQL. You need to take of every component that you see in this architecture. That would be the challenge for the guys who are maintaining this on-premise setup. They need to take care of all these things. But here, FB doesn't stop. Like if you want to have a Facebook kind of website, you don't stop here. You need more and more things. Let's suppose these disks get filled, so you added more images. So one image could store here, one image could store here, and the things would be very difficult for this architecture to handle those images and all that, and videos and all that. So for that, you need to introduce an external storage. Okay, all the media files will go to an external storage. So this could be your normal traditional hard disk in NAS, we call it as, or network file storage or something, where these applications will connect to this and put the images. So let's suppose you uploaded a photo. This goes into like normal web server. From here, it stores into a normal external storage. And you also need to have some content filter. It's not that you can store any images in the FP. So there would be a content filter so that it won't store anything which is out of the policy of FB and all that. So it won't encourage you to store all the kind of bad images and all that. So for that you need to have a content filter which will filter out the images which are stored in the external storage here. Okay, we looked into pretty big architecture till now here, but again we need to introduce more things. For example, for FB to work as a business. So let's suppose you are scrolling the Instagram or FB, you see ads there where the ads will be something which is targeted according to your usage. So if you are scrolling more into like the kind of images that you see, the kind of videos that you play, based on that they will, and based on the like information in the cookies also, if you're trying to buy some gadget or something, so based on those informations and everything, they try to build some ad revenues. So for that we call it as a click stream analysis. So whatever you click in a FB website, based on that they need to generate some ads and all that. So those kind of analysis will be again stored in an external storage, and where you introduce these things. So you have a data warehouse, like a kind of business intelligence, a kind of big data where you pull all the data there, and from that you create some kind of intelligence, like what kind of ads you need to have, what kind of like every user will have his own targeted ads and all that. So all these things happen here. So it may be on a single click for you, but in the behind the scenes, this is a big amount of infra that you need to build for those things to happen. So now some people will be using from mobile, some people will be using from web browser. So let's suppose now I'll be using from the mobile, but I can't have the same kind of images and like video streaming that should happen. So MP4 should be converted into some kind of mobile consuming format. So for that, you need to have a video converter. So wherein the external storage is converted to another external storage, and people from the mobile will access something like this. People from the web browser will access something like this. So now this is a kind of setup that we have. So now let's also introduce another thing called a content delivery network. So this is called a cache. So let's suppose there is a viral video going on. So many people are interested in looking that viral video, right? So I want that viral video to be put somewhere so that the people can directly have that instead of coming to all these things. So now I'll introduce something called a content delivery network or a cache, where you can directly first you hit that and you get the video from there instead of all these things. So this is how the complex architecture goes into, but let's see how AWS will solve all these problems with those services which are having in that. And finally, you'll have something called chatting. So where you chat with your friends and where you can, like, you also have email integration to all these things. For this, you have another three components. That is message queue, email, and SMS push notifications. For example, if someone likes your image or something, you directly get saying that notified that your image that you have uploaded is being, your post is being liked by someone. So for these things, you need to have a mobile push notifications and all these things, right? You introduce those things also here. And now one more thing I want to just introduce is monitoring and dashboard. So you need to firstly monitor the complete infrastructure. If something, this particular disk goes down, you need to know that, so that only your application to run, you need to monitor the complete infrastructure. Could be a storage, could be a business intelligence, you need to monitor that. And we can also introduce something called extract tool, like something like this, where you can upload, it's a ETL tools we call it as. This is also required for Spark and Hadoop to work. So you have this big architecture for a normal Facebook and something. So this is what, if you build in a traditional way, these things that you can see. So now let's try to build this in AWS. Now you'll know importance of AWS and what kind of services AWS gives you and all that. Then you can interrelate with this. And what I teach in the course also, I can tell you them. So now let's see, let's try to replace one by one, like what we can replace is. Firstly, let's replace this particular complete, this particular networking, that is VPC, we call it an AWS. So it's a virtual private network. So you have everything in your private network. Nothing is being exposed outside, something like this. Later you can expose from the load balancer level and all that, but you can replace the networking with something called VPC. Okay. Now let's replace the VMs. So the VMs are replaced with a service called EC2. So it's called Elastic Compute Cloud, where if you want to create a VMs, you need to create something called EC2 instance. So you go to the AWS console and you create a VM that is EC2. So the storage that is associated to a EC2, the disk is called EBS. You call it as elastic block storage. Okay, and you put this thing in a kind of a scaling way that you see these arrows indicate that you can scale up or down, or you can scale into more instances, less instances, and all this. So that is what this thing mean. It's called auto scaling. So based on your load, you can increase the EC2 instances and all that. And now let's try to also replace the remaining parts of the architecture. Now, this is what database gives us. So in AWS, we have quickly looked into the RDS, right? We have just had a look of RDS. So now this is an RDS, so which is a database. And for the NoSQL, you have something called DynamoDB. This is a DynamoDB. So how this looks like the icon. And now let's replace the other things also. Now the load balancer is being replaced to something called elastic load balancer. So the users will be able to first hit the elastic load balancer, and from here you will get it will be sent into these requests. So it follows a algorithm called round robin, where the first request goes here, second request goes here, something like this. And even the DB cache is replaced with something called elastic cache. So this is what a DB cache looks like. Okay, now let's replace these components, what AWS gives us. So firstly, yeah, the DNS is replaced with the route 53. So the route 53 is something where you can add fb.com, example.com, whatever the website that you want to create, you need to add in the route 53. We'll look into the DNS also. Now, if I replace these external storage, so the very famous external storage AWS gives you is S3. So it's like an infinite amount of data that you can store here. Like infinite is in the terms of like whatever the amount, you can go to petabytes of data that you can store in the S3. And for this content filtering, you can replace with recognition. So if you just go to here and if you see recognition, and you'll see this particular service which searches and analyzes the image. So we'll replace the exactly what required here with that particular software. Sorry, with that particular service. So now you have these things replaced. The S3 is there, and we have the recognition also. So all these things are already there. Now let's replace these things also. So if I go down for the video converter and all this, we have something called Lambda, where you can write any Python function which will convert the MP4 into a normal format where mobile users can consume. And we replace these things. So if you see here, the clickstream analysis, Spark and ETL, I want to replace these things, what AWS is giving me. I'll replace these things with something called Kinesis, EMR, and Glue. In this course, you don't learn this. So this is something related to the like completely big data guys or machine learning, Hadoop, and all this. We don't learn this, but we see that if you go to any company where they use AWS, you have these services. So once you go there, you will be able to manage this because you already know the at least what AWS is offering you. But for building any kind of these things, all the other things are required. All the fundamentals are required. What we learn in this particular course. So we learn all these things. We learn elastic cache, RDS, and S3 and all this. So here I don't teach recognition, Redshift, Glue, Kinesis, or EMR. These are all completely codes related to big data guys. So who has knowledge on big data itself, they can create these and utilize that. So normal cloud guys need not require this knowledge in any company also. Okay. So they just haven't, even to create all these things, you need to have all the understanding of the fundamentals of networking and all that. So that is an intention for this. I just want to show you how we can replace this architecture, so that how the companies uses complete cloud for their business and all that. So now this thing again. Now for the business intelligence, we can choose Athena and QuickSight. These are again services from the AWS, which will replace these things, and which so this complete structure for you. The Kinesis EMR will do these kind of clickstream analysis, like all the ad generations and all these you can do via this kind of infrastructure. That is what my intention here is to teach. Now let's replace this one. Like we have a content delivery network, right? So we can replace with something called CloudFront, which will have the edge locations and all these kind of setup. And now here you also replace this one also has been also replaced. The SMS, email, message queues, and dashboards. AWS gives something called a simple notification service, email service, queue service, and CloudWatch to completely monitor your infrastructure. So from with a normal this one, so where we don't have anything, we have with the traditional kind of normal architecture, we have moved into the AWS where it gives you different services are replaced with the different things. And now you have the complete a social networking website hosted on AWS without any outside things. So now you have everything here. So the people should be able to access via Route 53. They should be able to access the web servers. And here, once you upload the images, they'll go into these S3 buckets. And there is a kind of image filter which will filter out all the unwanted content and all that. And again, the images which are there for a normal web browser usage, they'll be converted into you use a Lambda to convert these things into a normal format where mobile application users can consume that. And you have edge locations and CloudFront for a viral videos and all the things that are need to be consumed very fastly or something like that. Let's suppose if the Hotstar is starting a match now, like if the World Cup is going on, right? So the many people are interested in watching that particular video instead of any other things. So they put that in the CloudFront so that the people can access that very fastly, and these things will be the main things to serve your application. Okay, so that's how it works. And now for all the clickstream and ad generations, this is the part that will take care of. And the main thing is the databases or all these things what AWS provides us. And this is for the notifications and email services and chatting and all that. So this will give you a complete overview. So that's the reason the people or the business will start moving into the AWS to leverage these kind of services and all that. So AWS is very rich in all the services that they provide, and that's the reason they'll move the business to the AWS. This is a big thing, but in our course we look into these kind of architectures more and more. I'll teach you the three-tier architecture. I'll teach you how can you build some website using a serverless or a microservices architecture or a normal traditional architecture and all these things. So these days you go to Dockers and Kubernetes, right? The kind of architecture looks very different. Like you don't have the EC2 instances here. You'll have a Docker containers running your application and all that, and the Kubernetes clusters and all that. In this course, we'll teach you even the container services AWS offers us. So you have ECS and EKS, a Kubernetes services, and also the container services. We'll go deep dive into the container services and we'll look into what thing AWS gives us in this course. And many more what we do is you do have services which will take care of security. So we'll see that like how all these things are secured. So at an instance level you have security groups or KMS encryptions and all that, or we have IAM services which will secure that. So firstly we'll see infra side in this course. Later we'll also see the security parts in this course. So I'll teach you the KMS, IAM, and a WAF or something like this, a basics of security, what all the AWS security services. We'll not deep dive into inspector and all these things because this is not what you require for a normal AWS certifications or normal AWS. Like if you want to start something on AWS, it goes into like AWS security services are more for people who are on the security lines. And now there are also DevOps services what AWS gives us. So if you want to create this complete architecture, let's suppose this is an architecture that you want to create in a normal way. So I can go into a dashboard where I can start creating all these things. But it will take hours together or days to build completely this application, like 1 or 2 days to completely do this once everything is done. But we can write something called CloudFormation. This is a template which can create this complete infrastructure in 30 minutes. So in this course, we'll look into the basics of CloudFormation. But these days, the people are using something called Terraform, where they create complete infrastructure using Terraform. But in this course, we'll look into very basics of CloudFormation, how we can create a basic instances and all that. And after that, yeah, the CloudFormation is infrastructure as a code tool where you write simple templates in a kind of YAML or JSON, where you use it to build it. And now you have something called CI/CD part also. So if you can see this, this is code commit, code build, code deploy, code pipeline. If you look into something called Jenkins, which does all these things, even AWS services have these things where you can store your code like a kind of code repository, like a Git code repository, where you can build all these things using the code repository and a code pipeline. So we'll look into this also, the basics of what code build or a code pipeline, a CI/CD does here, very basics, not into a deep dive. So now this is what you learn in this complete course. So you learn about all the services that we are talking here, not which are related to this one. So I'll show you what all the services that you'll learn in this course in this particular slide. Then you'll understand what we do. Let me just go back to this slide. Maybe you'll be confused like how many services are being introduced, but let me just show you. Yeah, there are some services that you'll learn. Firstly, you'll learn about EC2 instances, the auto scaling related to that, and load balancers, container services, and all this, and also some parts of Lambda. And after that, I'll teach you IAM services and also the storage-based services like S3, EFS, EBS, and all that. And in the database services, we'll go into the RDS and Dynamo and basics of Elastic Cache and on the Redshift. And in the networking and management, you'll know about completely networking. Like I'll teach you the VPC, Route 53, and the security groups. And there are many things in the networking also. We'll look into this networking section also. So it will look like this. So you'll have basics from the compute, that is EC2 and like Elastic Beanstalk and all these things. And from the containers, I'll teach you the main thing, that is ECR, container registry, ECS, and basics of the EKS. Like for this, you need to have the Kubernetes knowledge, but we'll not go into the deep dive of it. And from the storage, we'll teach about S3, that is external storage we have seen, and an EFS, and the Glacier also, and something like this. From the databases, I'll teach you an RDS, a DynamoDB, Elastic Clash. And from the networking, we'll go into the VPC, CloudFront, Route 53, and all this. And in the developer tools, we'll just look into the basics of code build or code deploy or code pipeline, why it is for the CI/CD to be used. And then we'll get into the basics of cloud formation and all these things. So this complete course will take more than 30 days. Like it will be take 40 days nearly, 40 to 45 days, or we can just see how we can complete it. Like basically, I'm targeting it to 30 days plus 1 week, this complete course. So this is what I'll teach you. This is what about the basic introduction of the cloud services and all that. Again, we'll go into these things from the tomorrow class. Again, I'll repeat the basic cloud introduction and basic services that we do, and later we'll go into the this cloud and we'll start teaching from here. And this complete course will be in your free time. The cloud that you're using will not charge you. You need to create AWS accounts in this course, and every day I'll teach you something and I'll give you some kind of basic tasks or assignments or something like this after teaching any particular service, and you need to start with that. And after every 1 week or something, I'll come up with these kind of basic architectures what you build in AWS. Let's suppose a normal website, a three-tier website, if you want to build in the AWS, will start with the same kind of architecture we have seen here. And how do you build with that, with the Docker containers or something like that, if not with the EC2 instances or something like that. Okay, so this would be the complete introduction of this course. So this may be very long. Maybe I have told very things very fastly, that could be, but I just want to give you the complete gesture or the complete kind of content that we are dealing in this course, so that you can get a grasp of what we are dealing. So now I'm open to the questions, like whatever you have or any doubts in the things that I've just told you.
That's the my name is Vishnu. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, Vishnu, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you for your demo. So my question is, I work for Oracle Database Administrator. All our databases are in on-prem right now, so we are planning to migrate all our non-prod databases to EC2 instance. So maybe next down the road, maybe 1 month or 1.5 months, we are going to EC2 instance. So are you going to provide me some knowledge on EC2 instance and how we can migrate our databases from on-prem to EC2 instance, I mean AWS? So are you going to provide me a knowledge on that?
Yeah, definitely. We'll go EC2 in the depth way, because this is a fundamental service that we do use for anything. Like without the knowledge on EC2, there is no point of the AWS cloud itself. So if you look into this, we'll cover all these sections that is being shown here. So we'll go in depth in the EC2, the kind of way we need to migrate from a normal on-premise to the EC2 also. That is, yeah, we'll definitely cover those things.
So you will also cover the migration strategy from on-prem to EC2 on Oracle database?
No, no. Further, see the migration and all that you have, like if you are already a database, like working in the databases Oracle, and you want to move to the RDS or Oracle databases in this particular AWS, I can help you out in for example, we can have a kind of discussion what kind of setup that you have and move into the database. But there are certain services which does these things. Like for example, maybe your company may not use this also. There is something called database migration service, which handles all the how do you move the databases to normal on-premise to the this setup. So you to understand this one also, you need to understand all other services in the AWS. So if I just click here, you don't know how do you do that. Like this particular one service may utilize for you, like how you can do that. I can just tell you this one, how do you do that? Like in a normal, after the class, after 15 minutes or something, I can just give you a grasp of this service. But as per the course, I'll not teach these any of these migration things, because this
Oh,
again requires a complete different knowledge.
yeah,
Because
thank you.
you are already a DBA guy, I can easily tell you these things. But for a normal guys, this would be a difficult to tell these kind of things.
Okay, thanks.
So based on your requirement, if you have certain requirement, and if you want, like we can after the class we can extend it to another 15 minutes, and we can just think of it. If you're already using some kind of on-premise setup, and if you want to move it and ideas around that, the architecture around that, I'm open to talk about it. But in the course, I'll not teach this.
Yeah, I'm just looking for, let's say, if I take a level 0 backup or level 1 backup in on-prem, so how can I transfer that level 1 backup pieces to EC2 instance? I'm just looking at one. So moving from on-prem to EC2, I'm just.
Okay, we can just discuss on this,
Anyway,
because
but
while
anyway, there is a knowledge.
yeah, exactly. Okay, any other doubts or anything that related to like what you're looking for, and if I'm not covering that part, or if you're completely new to the AWS cloud, we'll start with very basic. It's not that we'll move into the different services. It's very simple. Whatever I do in this course, you should be able to open your account and do the same things. So we'll start with very, very basic things. If someone is not from the cloud, if you're from the normal testing background or a development background, or something which is completely not related to the DevOps or even the cloud also, you need not worry. We'll basically start with basic things, like what is a server or something. You will start building the basic servers, and you'll get your knowledge on those lines. So I see like there are many people who are from the different non-DevOps backgrounds, or non-systems admins or systems engineer, and they want to learn the cloud. And this course is certainly for them. Like we'll start from very basics. It's not that we'll directly jump into the servers and try to learn from there.
Are you maintain any special WhatsApp groups to inform the what are the classes timings and all those information?
Yeah, they will do it. Yeah, the career IT takes care of it.
Okay, thanks.
Will there be any small project kind of thing which will be doing along with the course?
Yeah, Venkatesh, like every day we do that. Like once, for example, if you have the EC2 completed here, so I'll give you a assignment or a task which is associated with that, and you should be able to do that. Yeah, there will be something which will be connecting all the things. Slowly after 2 weeks or something, you will have more services where you need to connect them and do a kind of small mini project or something like that also. An assignment looks like that.
Like some of the features in AWS, within the free service, free tier, they are not available. So how do we do that?
So one thing is, yeah, there are certain services that even I show in the classes are not there in the free tier, like the load balance or something. But I would like you to invest, like it doesn't take more bucks. Like it could be like, I'll show you how we do that. So I'll put there is something called billing dashboard, where we create some kind of say that my account should not cross 500 rupees or something. So within that amount, like you can use your account and something like you can have a limit there. So for example, if you want to learn completely, like if you want to learn end to end, there is some amount that you need to literally, like AWS doesn't give you, like I'll tell openly, like AWS doesn't give you free like load balancers and something like this. So like even though they don't give that free, you can use it, and it doesn't cost you more. Like it just costs at least not more than 200 or 300. So you can spend on that, and you can just create them, you can check it, and you can delete that very immediately. So there are very limited services, not that all the services. So for example, in the EC2, when I'm deep diving into this, there are certain services which they won't give you free, because that knowledge you need required. So for that I'll show you, but uh, it's up to you if you want to practice them, but that doesn't cost you more. Using all the services that I do in the class, that doesn't cost you more than 500 or 600. So it's fine. You can also do that if you like it. If not, I'll show you. It's not that I'll theoretically, I'll go here and show you, and we can see in this class also like that. Because even this is a paid account which I use during the class. I'll create all these, and that doesn't cross me more than like even 500 or 600. So I'm confident, like I can tell you, like there will be no issue. And we can also put a billing like more than 500, the bill should not cross. Then it will send you a notification when you're 500, and you can delete all the things also if you want. But I don't think so much of the services are the free tier itself. Like if you just see AWS free tier, there are many services that are only free, which AWS is offering you, and we'll use this one only. So if you see, there are EC2 S3. So this is EC2. You can use till 750 hours. It's like running your website completely on the AWS for 1 year. They don't charge you anything. So at that level, you can do it. And you see, you have Lambda, where we'll use it, DynamoDB, RDS. So you have many services which we use. So don't worry about it. So like many of the services are being there for freely. You can use it, and you can understand that. You need not worry about that.
Like when compared to AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and all, which is more in demand and which has more market?
Yeah, AWS is more market. Like if you see the Gartner AWS, like they release some kind of cloud computing official. If you see the statistics and all that, let me just show you. So this quarter, if you see, AWS is leading like like continuously till now, even 2021 also, AWS is the leading one. You don't even see the market captured by those like other cloud when you compare to the AWS. So this is where they give complete statistics. So if you see the 2021, as of 2000 July, AWS is standing here as a leader. Next comes the Microsoft and Google, and like IBM and all these things. So you can look this particular chart for any number of years, and this is a kind of website you can rely on. And if you look, the market is more highly demanded for the AWS than any other services. You can see like there are very large gap is there between Microsoft and AWS also. So there will be a lot of job opportunities and many things when you have the AWS cloud with your resume instead of other clouds. If you look into the cloud market.
With this course, which certification can we attempt?
I'll teach this course somewhere between solutions architect and like it goes till solutions architect. So I'll target this course to AWS solutions architect. It's not that I'll teach everything in that, but the main intention is still solutions architect. So at least said like this is what and this course you can train for. But there are some services I'll miss here because of the time constraint and all that. This is a big certificate if you compare to the other certificates and all that, but my intention is to take till here so that you can clear other certificates that you want. So like if you see other certifications, so let me show you that. Certification path, you'll have it. Yeah, this one. So these are the major certificates AWS gives you. So this is a professional one. If you see this is a foundation. This you can easily clear in this course. You can easily clear with the cloud practitioner and all that. And here I will target with something called solutions architect. and this will be this is something after this. So after the basic associate, you'll get professional, right? So in this course, we'll target this one, not sorry, not this one. This is a professional one. We'll target this one, AWS Certified Solutions Architect or something like this. So this will give you two things. Like if you learn this, you can also crack SysOps or a DevOps also. But DevOps needs more like it needs a more kind of thing. But this course will be targeted to this one particularly. So where you require 1 year of solution, year of experience of AWS and solving these things. But we'll miss very simple things in this. Like there are some basic services that I'll tell you, but you don't need that. Like for example, in the databases, they'll also go to an extent of Redis and all that. But we'll have a normal something called Elastic Cache that is fine for that. So there is some basic alternatives that we can also learn there. But completely it's targeted for this particular course.
Do we need to have Python programming knowledge?
No need. Yeah, we don't use Python anywhere here. So the programming only that you see is only at the cloud formation, only there you have some JSON. And you need basics of bit Linux, where I'll teach you that also. So it would be apart from what AWS we teach here, like basics of Linux are required. I'll definitely go through that. Yeah, any other doubts or anything that you want to check with? Okay, if there is if there is nothing to check with, then I'll just stop the demo. You can contact contact the career IT. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining the demo then. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, Satya, you can just go even if you're with the Windows platform. There is no issue with that. Because I'll teach the basics of Linux, what you need for this cloud computing. So there's no problem. Like even if you're with the Windows background also, you'll be able to easily take up. Because all the servers are residing on the Linux, you need to know the basics of the Linux, that is sure. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.